try to make this as natural as possible.
That's what editing is for.
Yeah, that's exactly what editing's for. The Facebook page, you might know that I made a special trip last night because we haven't had a single clear night in Charlotte for, well, up until last night for over a month. So long time without seeing the stars for your pal Rue, and that's not something I like to do, particularly with the high blood pressure issues that I have been dealing with over the last few weeks. So getting out under the stars, man, there really is something special about it. And it really does calm the nerves in a way that I don't think anything else can in my life. There's just something about it. So we are approaching a new moon. So that'll be here Monday. Here's hoping that everybody gets a few nice clear nights during this moon's phase of new moon. But we got something cool for you this week. So as you know, I've been working on setting up more interviews for the show. And last night when I went down to the observatory, I had hoped to speak with one of the members of the club. We've got just a lot of really interesting people that are members of the Charlotte Amateur Astronomers Club. And last night was no different. So when I showed up, mind you, it was a Wednesday night. So a school night, if you will. So not as many people there as there probably normally would be, but there were still, I think 4 or 5 people there. Braxton was there. I hadn't seen him in a long time. Want to congratulate Braxton. He actually just got into Duke University and will be starting there in the fall, and he will be studying astrophysics. So huge shout out and congratulations to you, Braxton. That's a amazing accomplishment. Really tough school to get into. And I just wish you the best in your future astrophysics career, as I'm sure you'll succeed in it, man. You're definitely one of the brightest young minds that I've met. Also met a new member of the club by the name of Peter. He had a 12-inch visual scope out last night. So we were taking our time quite a bit looking at various targets in the night sky, which was a lot of fun. I haven't gotten to see a whole lot of nebula through a large aperture visual scope, but there's something really special about that, man. Let me tell you, if I had a Bortle 4, maybe even 5, but Bortle 4 or better, dark sky that I lived at, I would definitely own a big Dob, or a, big Meade type telescope on a fork like he had. I believe it was a 12-inch Meade that he had with the fork mount, and, not something that you would use for astrophotography, obviously, but very impressive for visual. I mean, we looked at the Sagittarius small star cloud, and I was just completely blown away by that. I mean, it was incredible. So a big shout out to Pete as well. Welcome to the club. I hope you stay a member for a long time, and I hope we get to spend a lot more nights together out under the stars. But the person that I actually sat down and talked with is his name is Justin. So Justin is a longtime astrophotographer. Well, I'll let you hear about it during the show. But so Justin he's a little bit of an enigma, guys. And I think you will pick up on that just listening to our talk. He is not like most people that you meet. And I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you in advance that we talk about several images that he has worked on throughout this interview. And he showed me many of them during the second half of the interview when I was sitting and talking with him. And I did ask him if he would like to, send me a few of the images, but his work is, I don't want to speak for him, but I get the feeling that his work is very personal to him. So it might not be something that he necessarily wants to share, or maybe he's not ready to share it yet, because I think you'll also find that he is very much a perfectionist. I'm going to let him tell it himself during the interview rather than try to explain it away. But I will tell you, this morning when I woke up, I had a little bit of a different outlook on things after speaking with Justin for a while, because he is the definition of ego death, is probably the best way that I could describe it. I don't think I have ever met such a humble person in my life. The images that he showed me are the best I've ever seen in astrophotography, hands down. And I'm telling you guys, it's not even close. These images would be at home with what you see from NASA. Not exaggerating. Some of the stuff that I saw from him last night is better than what I have seen from James Webb images. So take that for what you will. Justin, if you're listening, I just want to say thank you so much for sitting down with me and having that discussion. And if and when you are ready to share a few of those images, please let me know, because I would certainly love to share them with the listeners. I will say I sent him the link earlier today. I don't have anything yet. That's not to say he's not going to send them over. He may at some point, but I'll update you guys if and when he does. And obviously I'll link to them in the show notes so you can see them, but they will not be on this week's show notes. I'm just letting you know that in advance. I apologize. Actually, I don't apologize, because it's his work and it's very important to him. And you know what? I'll let Justin speak for himself, and we'll go from there. So thanks for tuning in this week. I am your host, Rue. You are listening to the Astrocast. Enjoy the interview. All right. So down here at Gale Rigsby Observatory, and we're just kind of walking around and talking with everybody and seeing what they're up to this evening. We've got nice skies, but we got a few clouds in the west, and they're making me a little nervous. But compared to what it's been the last month in Charlotte, I'll take it. So sitting with me here is Justin. He's a longtime member of the club. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Justin. I've been a member of the Charlotte Club for maybe 2.5 years or so. I used to drive about 3.5 hours to a Bortle 3 zone to image, and I would literally camp in a tent, put my phone on a hotspot so I could work during the day and stay there for a couple days at a time.
Nice.
Trying to get my best to try and predict the weather.
Yep.
And I realized I couldn't continue to put my life on hold indefinitely, and I needed to find something closer. So I started looking around and found out that, lo and behold, the Charlotte Club existed, A, and B, actually had their own dark sky site, which I did not expect.
Yes.
So I found their monthly newsletter online and discovered that they had monthly Zoom meetings. Because this was obviously during the height of all the fun that happened.
2020.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So they were dealing with that for a while, obviously, because a lot of the people that were physically attending meetings were elderly. And so they were very cautious about that. So even well after 2020, they continued to do it online. And when I joined, the presentation that night was by imagers. Which was actually very unusual.
How long have you been imaging at that time?
I think I had been imaging about a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay. So you're still kind of getting your feet wet, but pretty good at that point, taking some decent shots.
Yeah, decent shots. And I was like, oh, there are people that actually take pictures here.
Yes.
And that was like the first time they had done an astro presentation, I think, in a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
Which I happened to meet that one. So I was privately messaging, I think the observatory director at the time. I was like, hey, how do I come out here? Where is this place? Like, what do I need to do to join? So they sent me a link to register for the club, and I came out the next clear night, and continued to come out here, sat on the guest pad, would camp, in the warm-up room, and would just image and any clear night that I could, which was super, super nice, because I could just drive down here after work, set up, image all night, tear everything down in the morning, go home and just go right back to work.
Yep. Not much sleep those days, right?
Not too bad. I mean, 6 hours isn't too bad. But it enabled me to really soak a lot of time in some targets. I think, like, I did a wide field shot of M81, M82, and it's probably 60 or 70 hours.
Wow.
From the guest pad.
60 or 70 from the guest pad. That's impressive. I'm gonna have Justin send me a few of the photos that we discussed tonight, and I'll link them in the show notes if any of you guys want to check them out. I'd love to see the 60 or 70 hour shot. You said it was Bodes?
It was the Bodes and cigar.
Yeah, Bodes and cigar.
all the IFN surrounding it.
Yes.
I do need to reprocess it. I pushed primarily for the IFN, so I'm pretty happy with the IFN. The Galaxies, not as much. I wasn't particularly skilled with processing those. That's most of the targets that I do are narrowband.
Yep.
I do a lot of nebulae, and I still try and aim for really faint stuff.
Yep. So what are some of your favorite targets that you're looking forward to this Milky Way season?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I have this really bad habit of not planning ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I shoot targets without having kind of a strict criteria of when I'm done.
Yep.
So I finish it. I say finished. I'm not even sure I'm finished yet. A target I did with 172 hours.
Wow.
120 hours of narrowband and about 45 hours of broadband.
Wow. What target is it?
That was a portion of the question mark nebula.
Wow, a portion.
Well, so the question mark nebula is actually really, really big. And I was using an 80 millimeter refractor with a APS-C sensor. So it gets most of the question mark.
450-ish millimeters?
Yeah, 480.
Yeah, 480, okay.
So F6.
Yep.
I have most of the question mark, but obviously not the dot. That's like way down there.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, how I sequenced everything, I meant to get a little bit of RGB for the stars primarily, and ended up with 45 hours of it. So that's a lot more than I need for the stars. So what I'll probably do is look at it and then just go, okay, is it worth doing, say, another 50 to 100 hours on luminance to see what broadband stuff I can really push out?
Yeah.
If not, then I'll just do a couple different ones past this. I'll probably do just straight SHO with really nice RGB for stars. It's super overkill. Or I may do like an RGB with SHO continuum extracted.
What is continuum extracted?
That's a great question. So if you look at broadband, so broadband just means, olive red, olive green, olive blue. Yep. Narrowband is going to be, we're looking at a very tiny sliver of that color. So HA has a very specific band pass that we're going to look at. Sulfur 2 has a very specific band pass. But even when you image with that very narrow band pass, you're going to get a lot of data that isn't hydrogen or isn't sulfur.
Really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Because if something produces a lot of different reds, it's going to hit that target.
That's true.
It's still going to be in there.
Yeah, good point.
And it can still overwhelm the signal. So what you can do is basically subtract a known quantity of red from your hydrogen.
Gotcha.
And if it's only in the hydrogen image and is not in the red image, then it's just hydrogen.
So does using narrower band filters help?
It does. But no matter how thin you slice it, you're still going to get some.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense because the color is only one very specific wavelength. And even if we get down to 3 nanometers, you're still gathering.
You're still getting some. Yeah. I'll show you an image of hydrogen alpha continuum extracted for the core of M31. It's really
that sounds
cool.
Beautiful.
There's some wild swirls and stuff in the center, which just gets overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And it's just
Did I see that photo not too long ago? I feel like I saw it. Maybe it was when I was down here last time and somebody was showing me recent photos of the club members. You've got some incredible shots though, man. I got to say, I've seen quite a few of them. We haven't really talked that much. So
I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, I think for me, what I try and do is right now, my focus is really on long targets. So I've done CTB1, which is a supernova remnant. I've really struggled to find magnitude. I literally can't find an answer for it, but as best as I can tell, somewhere between like 20 and 25.
Okay.
So
wow,
really
20
dim.
and 25. Good
That's
Lord.
as best as I can tell. And I can get some answers in X-ray because there's a lot of measurements for that, but not for broadband.
Yeah.
But I spent, I think, 80 hours on that.
80 hours.
And that was just hydrogen and oxygen and maybe like a couple hours on RGB for the stars.
We can't even say it's just because you have an observatory down here either, because as you said, you were down here at the guest pad imaging targets that long. So has that been, were you that way from the get-go kind of?
No, absolutely not. So I remember when I first went down to Georgia, I think I spent maybe 30 minutes max on a target. I was just
hopping around,
gleeful to see something because before then, I was imaging in much brighter skies. And so I'm like, there's a faint fuzzy there. I can see something. And then to be able to spend like a 5-minute exposure and get better results than like 30 minutes of integration, just going, oh, wow. Okay. So, I mean, I bounced like a little kid. I was just like, all right, here's a new thing. Here's a new thing. Here's a new thing. I think I hit like 6 or 7 targets the first night.
Of course.
I was just ecstatic. But then obviously you go back later and go, man, this is really noisy. This is hard to push. Like I can see stuff. Obviously I can see the object, but not very well. And so for then it was, all right, so 30 minutes is not enough. Okay. 10 hours. That's a huge jump up improvement. Okay. Maybe 10 hours per channel. Now we get like 30 to 40 hours. And 40 hours is kind of my bare minimum.
Bare minimum. That's incredible because for me, and this is going to change, obviously. I just recently installed a pier at my house. Just because I unfortunately with my life, I just can't make it down here as often as I like, but I want to image as much as I can. So I feel like I'm going to start being able to get longer exposures, but from much brighter skies, obviously, because it's near the city. But that is definitely something to strive for because the quality of the image, I mean, it really does speak for itself when you get up to that 40 plus hour range.
Yeah. So it has a couple of benefits. Obviously, one, the signal to noise ratio increases significantly, becomes much easier to see stuff. Especially the really, really faint stuff. So I did the Witch's Broom.
Oh, I love the Witch's Broom.
Yeah, part of the Western Veil.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously the broom itself is incredibly bright. Pretty easy to see, does not take a lot of time. And if you look at most images that you can find online, that's what you're going to see. But if you soak, again, 60 to 80 hours on it, all of a sudden you can see there's all this faint wispy stuff away from the main core of it. You just don't see anyone imaging, and it's
so
there.
True.
You'll see some hydrogen because hydrogen, a lot of people image that, but the oxygen that I got, like I haven't found another image that had it.
Wow. That's impressive.
I'm not discovering because it's part of the nebula, but it's so faint that just most people basically just gets drowned in the noise and it just gets crushed.
And that's something that's like really exciting about the time that we're living in. I mean, people like me and you can absolutely discover new things and are all the time, have you gotten a chance to look at the, is it the O2 that's over Andromeda that was discovered recently?
Yes, I actually was part of a group project for that. So we did 1,000 hours.
You were a part of that project?
I was.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I was not part of, obviously, the original discovery. But afterwards, I was probably 15 to 20 of us, and we all contributed 1,000 hours. And in fact, the core of Andromeda is my data.
Really? Oh, dude, that's where I saw it.
Yep.
Because I remember you were describing the swirls earlier. I'm like, I've seen that image. That's your data.
Yes,
that's why.
It's my data.
And it was an APOD, wasn't it?
Probably.
Yeah.
I have to assume so.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that, man.
You.
That's incredible.
I appreciate that. The core of Andromeda, I shot completely independently of the group before that. And so when they were said, hey, we're going to do the 03 arc, I said, sweet, 100% I'm on board. I've obviously got, Observatory. I can contribute time. I'd love to be a part of this. And then as we were getting towards the end, I reached out to the guy who was organizing and said, hey, I don't know if you need this, but I have, I don't remember. It was like 40 to 50 hours of HA data.
Just got it.
Just have it.
Yep.
And I had the red channel for continuum extraction so we could do it at scale.
Yes.
Because this was a wide field target. So everyone's shooting with, wide field images, but to be able to shoot at, almost 2000 millimeters.
Wow.
That obviously gets a much higher resolution so we can have high confidence on the detail and we can kind of inject that into the image correctly. So when I showed him the data, he did some continuum extraction. He was like, oh, this is super awesome. Yes, please.
Yes.
So I gave him that data and he added that into the core. And
I'm guessing like that is a perfect example of when continuum extraction becomes like incredibly important.
Yeah.
So here's a question that we could probably talk about all night. But when you take what'd you say, 2000 millimeter focal length? Are you using PixInsight to integrate that? Or yeah? See, we talk about in our group, we've got a Discord chat for the members of the group. And we often talk about doing a group project. Yeah. And the thing that always comes up is, well, we all got different focal lengths.
That's fine. So you have to take care, obviously, and you may end up resampling data.
Yep.
So you have to scale so it's all roughly the same size, but it doesn't have to be exact. So a lot of the group projects I do obviously end up in the same boat where no one has the exact same pixel scale. That's just not going to happen. And so you kind of have orders of magnitude. Everyone that's kind of in this sweet spot here, we're all going to be easy to do it. And then if you have something that's wildly outside of that, you're going to have to rescale.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we try and aim for everyone similar focal lengths. Yeah. And so for that group that I do, which is that Deep Space Collective, we have two different groups inside of that.
Okay.
We have a wide field group and a more zoomed in,
deeper space. Yeah, I got you.
More zoomed in.
Yeah.
And so, small field of view, large field of view groups.
Okay.
And so obviously having a small refractor, that sits into that one. I don't use my C11 for the small field of view only because like the minimum exposure length is like 900 seconds.
Wow.
And
what kind of mount do you run that on?
So I have a SEM 70 by iOptron.
Beautiful. I've got a SEM 26 and I just love it.
I do. So the only thing is I need to do a bit more 3D balancing.
Okay. Yeah. They're notorious for that, right?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I went from, I think I had an EQ6R Pro before that.
Okay.
Which is a great mount. Oh, yeah. But it's stiff enough that you don't really notice the 3D balance.
Yep.
And then the SEM 70 was so smooth that I immediately noticed I had a 3D balancing issue.
Yeah.
And so right now I can tell guiding difference between like before flip and after a flip, which obviously is not ideal. And it's a lot of potentially wasted data I'm throwing away. And
when you're doing 900 second exposures.
That's the minimum.
Yeah.
They prefer longer.
Wow.
So because we're shooting for very dim objects, part of the math equation is length of exposure. You need to have so many photons per image to have any confidence that you're getting something and not noise.
That makes sense.
And so the longer your single exposure, the more that math kind of equates to lower and lower magnitudes
that
you can register with confidence.
You hear about that a lot with, data is data, and as long as you have enough, you're good. But that's not really true when you're getting into narrowband imaging, right?
It's not even narrowband, it's broadband too. If you have something that's just incredibly faint, to have any level of confidence, you have to outshoot your noise.
Especially when you're dealing with things like atmosphere, et cetera. It'd be one thing if you were in Chile. I assume you might be able to use that same scope for 500 seconds.
So that particular scope is in Bortle 1 skies.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. The refractor is in Bortle 1. Nice. Obviously, we don't have Bortle 1 here, but my C11, honestly, the C11 requires a little more hands-on, recollimation and all that kind of stuff. That's not something I want to have remote. I'd rather have it physically on me so I can touch and tweak.
Completely understand that.
If we have a really good night, maybe I want to do some planetary and I can pull up the main imaging train pretty easily and slap in something for planetary. Not something I've had a lot of experience with, and I'd like to do it when I have time.
Yeah.
I never seem to have time, but it's here and I can if I want to.
Nice.
And I'm always trying to fine tune stuff, and that it's just not something that I would like want to be somewhere else. I'd want something more stable.
Yeah. I mean, did you say it's a wide field refractor that you have out there?
Yeah.
That's what I would imagine. Right. That's what you would want.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a Stellar View SVX 080T.
Stellar View is an awesome company.
Yeah, amazing. I bought it used from a guy in Canada.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, so I had a different scope, which I loved. It was the very first telescope I ever bought. Was a William Optics Zenith Star 81.
Nice. That was before the Red Cats became a thing, right?
Oh, very much before the Red Cats became a thing. And that was a wonderful scope. It was the most expensive scope that I ever bought at the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for a very long period of time until I bought the Stellar View.
Yeah.
So I had that, and then when I shipped it out to the remote location that it's at, unfortunately it got damaged in shipping.
Oh no.
And I didn't know.
Oh no.
So I went out there, installed it, everything was fine or whatever, and I wasn't paying too much attention because there wasn't clear skies while I was out there.
Yeah.
So I got everything set up. I had like 30 minutes of clear skies to get everything in focus and left. And then I went back and I was remotely imaging, and I was realizing that I had some severe tilt that I did not have before. So I went and looked, and we realized that the filter wheel had become warped.
Oh, man.
So that got damaged in shipping. So that was a bummer. We replaced the filter wheel, still getting distortion. And so realized that the refractor itself was no longer flat, but was literally slightly bent.
Oh, wow.
And you could see a gap on a seam where it was really tight on one side and there wasn't like a spot where like a set screw, like it was literally just
bent over.
It was just bent. And I was like, well, this is like, 6 months after the install that I've been trying to get this.
Good Lord.
It's too late. I can't claim, some sort of insurance on this.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I got to get a replacement. So
that's a shame. I mean,
it was,
it happened. It's one of the risks that you do deal with, but would you do anything different looking back?
I probably wouldn't have shipped it completely assembled.
Yeah. Break it all down.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid touching my imaging train.
I completely get that because you're sending it somewhere. Did you know at the time that you were going to be going down to do it either? Or was it like But I mean, I get that because especially like back focus and these types of things.
Everything was perfectly dialed in. It was just perfect corner to corner.
Yeah.
I was done. I didn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
And there's just too many pieces that could have stress depending on what way it is just unfortunate. So short of like injecting foam into it to like hold it perfectly. And even then, like the stock on the OAG is still really fragile. It's just, I needed to not be lazy and just completely disassemble it and ship it out.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah. Well,
and I paid the penalty for it.
Live and learn, right?
Yes. So yeah, Stellar View came out there. I went over there, I installed it, and I actually got a different camera on it with a tilt adapter.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I was just like, I'm not going to deal with any of this nonsense anymore. I'm just like, I'm going to get it there. I'm going to get it perfectly aligned.
So the tilt adapter did the trick?
Not on the Zenith Star. Zenith Star is done.
I was going to say, isn't it cooked at that point?
No, it is.
Okay, I got you now. Okay.
No, I'm saying on the Stellar View, I was like, the scope I'm sure is perfect.
Yeah.
But the sensors on the cameras aren't always perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was like, I don't want to, again, after spending all this money and going out here and getting everything set up, I don't want to risk that something still misaligned. So forget that, get a tilt adapter and just dial it.
Mm-hmm. Tilt adapters are so tricky. So before I got my FLO bayonet, like we were talking about earlier for the very popular Rokinon 135 lens, I had the Canon EF to ZWO adapter.
Yep.
And
I have it unopened in the box. Don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because the tilt was just unbearably bad. After I installed that bayonet plus an autofocuser, beautiful, like completely perfect. So I definitely get where you're coming from on that.
Yes.
So where do you don't have to give me like super specifics, but what state are we in? New Mexico for your remote imaging or?
So HCRO, the Howling Coyote Remote Observatory.
Oh, okay, cool. Very cool. How long have you been set up there?
About a year and a half, I think now.
Okay. Do you love it? Or?
Oh yeah. No, for sure.
And mostly clear skies, I would imagine?
Much better than here.
Yeah.
It's about 7,200 feet above sea level.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. So a lot less atmosphere to shoot through. I would say they go sub-arc pretty much every night. That's got to be
sub-arc. That's what I was thinking.
Every night.
Wow.
At some point during the night, it will go sub-arc. Pretty much almost guaranteed.
7,200, man. That's twice as high as anything you can get on the East Coast.
Yeah. No, it's really nice. Super dark. True Bortle 1. It's a ghost. There's nothing there.
Can you get, just curious, do you get cell service out there?
It's spotty.
Spotty? Do you have fiber or internet or anything out there?
No.
Okay. So when you're out there, you're out there.
If you want internet and you don't want like stupidly slow DSL, it's Starlink.
Okay.
That's it.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Did they have a lot of I would imagine it being sub-arc at second. This isn't like the budget pick for
No, I would say that planeway is probably the most common mount.
Okay, yeah. I guess if you've got those kind of skies, you're gonna put something proper.
My little refractor is pretty hilarious to look at compared to everything else out there.
But you get the best view for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there's a couple refractors. I definitely have the smallest one out there, but it's nice to have that. It is fun to have it in True Bortle 1. It is a little odd to have it a couple hours back.
Yeah.
Kind of get sequences set up and it's like, all right, so it's like 11 o'clock and it's just getting started. But it's at it's a commercial observatory, so there's no interference fits or anything like that. So it's just set it to go. I've got safety sensors. I set my sequences to auto stop if something's going, the roof's closing. I don't have to deal with that. Just go pause, wait for the weather to go clear again. Roof opens up again, go back to imaging.
Do you run Nina or K-Stars?
I run Nina.
So that's what I would run too. That's what I plan to run whenever I get a remote.
Yeah, so I've done a bunch of different stuff. Nina is my choice right now.
What about for your remote software? Google or?
No. So I know some people use Chrome Remote Desktop.
Yep.
I used to use Real VNC.
Okay.
They used to have a home plan, I think it was called, and it was like 5 machines you could connect to for free.
Nice.
Then they changed it and it's 3, but you had to re-enroll all the devices.
Oof.
So all of my devices that I couldn't log into, I was like, nah, we're done with this. You're going to change the terms again on me. And no. So I'm using Splashtop Business.
Splashtop. Okay. I've heard of that. Actually, and that's popular in the corporate world, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
I think we used that at AAA for a while when I worked there.
It's not super expensive.
Yeah.
So I've got like the smallest plan, but even the smallest plan will let you connect to like 10 machines.
Oh, nice. So you're good to go then.
Yes. And I've got quite a few machines tied to that for a bunch of different stuff. So it's nice to have, the ability to log into my machine here, the one out there. I got all kinds of stuff kind of all over the place that I'm able to connect to. I'm working on building a Rokinon 135 setup, and that'll go somewhere else, probably Texas.
Nice. Okay. Very cool. Now, do you physically ever make it out there? Have you been out to that observatory more than just for obviously the setup? The
New Mexico one? Oh yeah. I've been out there a bunch of times.
Nice.
So I know the owner and I've kind of assisted him with some stuff. So I go out there every once in a while to visit, hang out with him and kind of work on some stuff with him.
That sounds awesome. Like I say, I've seen, I guess you could say, technically Bortle 1, although I call it Bortle 2 really.
Sure.
But I have not seen like true Bortle 1 high elevation skies.
Sure.
And like seeing Zodiacal Light is something that is on my to-do list. So
yeah, I made a trip out to the Grand Canyon a few years ago and seeing the Milky Way like it was just painted across the sky was ridiculous.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I was like, obviously it's not as colorful because our eyes don't see a lot of color at night, but like the detail,
the marbling.
you just point at something like, oh, there's that chunk of the, like, I was just like, it was a canvas.
That's when like the North American Nebula is just like right there.
Yeah,
and it's massive.
It was nuts.
Oh man, I love it.
I'm used to like, oh, I can definitely see it, like it, but it looks kind of like a cloud, and it's like, no, this is the Milky Way.
I'll never forget the first time I saw the Milky Way was in North Carolina at a dark sky site. And the first time you see it, if you're not like in a, like, I guess a really great place, you're like, is that a cloud?
Yes.
What is that? That's like always the first reaction that I've heard from everybody.
No one thought it was a cloud.
Yeah.
You don't mistake that, huh? No.
Oh man, that sounds incredible. One thing we encourage a lot on this show is dark sky trips.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always encouraging our listeners to go out and go somewhere dark. And I tell them about Light Pollution Map, use it in combination with Google Earth.
Yep.
A friend of the show recently recommended an app called iOverlander. Have you ever heard of this? So iOverlander, it's basically like a public repository of places where you can camp publicly.
Nice.
So like if you wanted to, go out to the middle of nowhere and know there's a safe spot where you can set up your gear and no one's going to bug you.
Yeah.
People will leave reviews and update them frequently to say this is a good spot. So, how often do you get to take dark sky trips?
Not as often as I'd like.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. So the trip to the Grand Canyon was one I'd organized with a handful of friends that I'd kind of met through astrophotography. I'd actually never met any of them prior to that trip.
Oh wow!
But there was probably,
that's awesome.
Yeah. No, it was like, hey, let's plan a trip. Let's go somewhere really dark. Let's, and then the Grand Canyon was kind of perfect because you got a nice foreground. I planned it during a time when the Milky Way would be up. So we could all do just, nightscape Milky Way shots, super easy. We could, everyone who's flying could have, nice, easy portable rigs.
Yes.
So I had a, Star Adventurer Mini.
You said that earlier. And it didn't occur to me. I don't know if I've ever seen a Star Adventurer Mini. I've seen the 2i.
Yeah, it's smaller than that.
Smaller. Okay. So it's like a tiny cube. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's super small.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a wedge and a single motor, RA axis.
Yes.
But slap, a camera and a wide angle lens on it and you're sold. I guess that's it.
Yes.
It'll even do RA dithering.
Really?
Which is hilarious.
That's impressive though, because that's so important.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing worse. Like I'll never forget the first time. And what I will do is I will literally nudge my scope a little bit here. If I'm using like a 14, I'm okay with that because, walking noise is walking noise. And you can't get rid of walking noise in post. I don't care how good you are.
No.
All right, cool. We're going to take a break for just a couple of minutes here, and we will be right back at the Gale Rigsby Observatory. Push the button.
I got it.
Yep. Got it.
It's glowing red.
Here, let me go. There we go. I can't remember how the syncing works on these, so
no worries.
It doesn't hurt. All right.
Walk safely behind me. Shouldn't be any major tripping hazards.
I haven't been this far down yet.
Yeah.
I think Rick and Jeff's is the furthest I've been to.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. So this is mine and Bill's building.
Yeah, I've met Bill many times. He's cool. I like Bill.
Yes. Super nice. And
really
this is
nice
the building that'll have the 2 CDKs in it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, cool. They were up in the other round one up there, right?
So there's one that has the Delta Row.
That's right. Yeah.
But the 2 CDKs will live down here.
Beautiful.
So, yep. So my C11,
this is nice.
all running.
Beautiful. What are you pointed at right now?
Right now it should be pointed at Bodes.
Yep. Get what you can for now, huh?
Yeah, no, for sure.
We got some clouds rolling in, unfortunately.
I know. That's killing me. So that's mine. That's Bill's scope there.
Okay.
The white panels you see here in the back, those are for flats.
Yep, flats.
So I've actually got a light mounted on the pier itself, pointed towards the wall. So.
Okay, great. So I guess that makes sense. All you need is just a flat white surface and then a light that you can turn on.
Yep. Huh. Yeah. It's not overcomplicated. As long as what you are projecting is flat and white.
Yep.
Or even gray. It doesn't even have to be white. You could technically do any color for a monochrome camera. Obviously, it would be not the same sensitivity in some channels. But if it's flat in a single color, it doesn't really matter.
Evenly lit surfaces. All that matters.
Obviously, for a one-shot color camera, you really want a nice, even light that produces similar luminance values across all the channels. Otherwise, you can end with really weird-looking spectrum there.
That's like one of the most common things I see is vignetting from, filters is extremely common, or just people not taking their flats and not taking them properly. It's like one of the first things I tell people is like, take your flats. It's so easy. I mean, once you figure it out, I get it. It can be a little bit of a pain when you don't know how to do flats, but once you figure
it's
them
still
out.
Challenging. My greatest frustration on one of my images, I'll show you. It was somewhere between 50 and 100 hours on the Cigar Galaxy, and the Galaxy itself looks amazing, but I wanted all the IFN behind it.
Yes.
But I was shooting with my C11 and I had the soft dew shield. You can actually see here, it's chopped in half. I've significantly.
I was going to say that looks a lot shorter.
It is
the normal one
shorter.
sticks way out.
It sticks way out. And that's the problem was because it's floppy. When I'm pointed up, it had one shape. When I took it at the wall, it had a very different shape.
No.
So I had to use the flats because of dust spots and other things.
Yep.
But my vignetting was horrible. All of the brightness levels were screwed up. I was able to use multi-scale gradient correction with my wide field image of the galaxy to neutralize a lot of it, but that doesn't subtract from the fact that I had to crush it effectively. And so removing gradients also removed signal. And so all of the IFN is just gone.
Nah, man.
Which is really a bummer.
You said it was 40 to 50 hours on that
minimum.
Yeah, man. Oof.
But we'll come inside my room here.
Oh, nice.
And
forget we got 2 sections. I love it.
Oh yeah. So Bill's got his lone warm-up room, and that's fun. I've got mine in the middle of always in the middle of stuff. So
gotta have a mattress. Every observatory I've been in here has a place to sleep.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I got my office set up and a place to sleep so that I can work, wake up. I actually have these monitors on the wall here are on hinges, so I can pull them out and point them towards the bed so I can look in the middle of the night.
What nebula is that on your middle monitor?
This is a CTB1. That's a supernova remnant.
My goodness, I've never even seen that.
Yeah.
What focal length was that at?
That's the 80 millimeter refractor.
Oh, that's the one we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
Okay, that is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Wow.
I
love that. Little oh man, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
You got to send me a link to this one because I'll definitely post that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
I have to post it first.
Okay.
You're seeing a preview of it.
Well, maybe that'll be an Astrocast first then, seeing this particular image.
There you go.
Very nice.
So if I look at
So just so you know, we're in the other part of Justin's observatory right now. So he's got a large pad area, obviously with a roll-off roof that we were just outside that he's got a C11 set up. And then his partner in crime down here, Bill, has his scope set up as well. So they've got 2 piers out there. And then inside where the warm room portion is, if you will, he's got a very nice triple monitor set up. There's 6 monitors. There's monitors everywhere. Routers, microwave, coffee pot, bed, everything that you could want really, for spending, I guess, really as long as you want to down here, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, we don't have the ability to do laundry out here, but short of that.
So a couple weeks at a time. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Wow. Bravo, sir.
Yeah. So that's M82, and I'm pretty sure I have not posted that one. I really need to. So the reason I haven't ever posted this one is because, you can see the black is just literally black. There's nothing.
Is this the one we were talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a galaxy there?
There's galaxies everywhere. There's one. There's another one. There's another one. Yeah. There's 2 more.
My goodness.
Yep. There's 2 tiny ones right there. There's another tiny one there. Looks like Saturn. Yeah, so the details there, the background is just absolutely
got crushed out. Yeah. But I will say though, for an image with crushed blacks, that looks incredible. Because normally when you see crushed blacks, it's very, I don't even know the words to describe it, but it certainly isn't as vivid as this. This is, your stars are still gorgeous. Your nebulosity on the cigar itself is just incredible. All the HA. Oh man, the detail and sharpness, just well done.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is, believe it or not, this image is actually 2 years old.
Wow.
And I just never posted it. So I have gone back and imaged it a bunch more. In fact, let's check now. I don't actually know how much data I've captured on it since then. So let's look live.
So you essentially just set up plans in Nina, and then you'll pick a target and have it run for weeks at a time?
Yep.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah. So obviously here, in this particular building, we do have an interference fit, which basically means if my scope is up and the roof tries to close, it would hit the scope. I do have safety sensors, so it will not close if there's an obstruction, which is good. But what I don't have is anything for weather.
Gotcha.
So I physically check every night. Is it safe to run for tonight?
That makes sense.
And only if it's safe to run for the whole night. I don't care about clouds. I do care about rain. So if I get some bad images, who cares? I do care, obviously, if there's rain on the equipment. That would be very bad.
Absolutely.
So I don't do that. But the weather has not been kind to us, so I've not had as much time as I would like. But having said that, let's take a look.
So you're logging in to your scope in New Mexico right now?
No, this is a scope right outside.
Oh, okay.
So this is a C11. So this is Bode's. So 2-panel, because if I want to get all the outer stuff, I won't be able to see it in a single frame.
Gotcha.
So that's
a beautiful field of view on that.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the focal length?
So the native focal length on a C11 is approximately 2,800 millimeters.
Wow. Okay.
It does change because the way that your focus knob works is actually moving the primary mirror.
Oh, yeah. I never thought about that.
That changes your focal length.
Absolutely.
It also changes your focal ratio. And so I have a Starizona 0.63 reducer, but with the way that all the math ended up working out, it's basically a 0.7.
I'm guessing like if the focuser is moving in, you're getting faster technically, right? Because it's shortening. Well, anyway, you said you got a Starizona though?
So I have a Starizona 0.63. And the reason I have that is because I have a moonlight focuser.
Okay.
And so
those are like top of the line.
It's really nice because the knob doesn't get touched. It's just moving the camera in and out.
Okay.
Which means I make my final focus adjustment, counterclockwise against gravity, and I don't never touch that knob again, and nothing's moving that knob. So it's just moving the camera in and out to get focus.
That's what you want,
which is nice. Yeah. And the Starizona 0.63 reducer is actually a tube, and it fits inside of the 2-inch eyepiece.
Wow.
So my entire imaging train just slides in there.
That's awesome. And does that help save collimation over time too?
Yeah. Well, it's not going to make any difference on... collimation is shouldn't change.
Okay. I wasn't sure. See, I have not owned a Schmidt Cassegrain, so I only know what I've heard,
Yeah. So the hardest thing for me, obviously, is the Schmidt Cassegrains are sealed tubes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a lot of trapped air. The edge ones, which I don't have, the edge ones have fans and vents to help circulate that air or dump it out. I don't have that. So may not have been able to see, but mine's actually wrapped in insulation.
Okay.
So instead of dumping heat,
you're trying to
boiling it, I'm trapping it so that it diffuses more slowly.
Gotcha.
So there's going to be a disparity, but what I'm doing is slowing that to the process that the air inside isn't as turbulent, makes it a lot easier to see through.
Makes sense.
Because it would take hours to actually settle.
Because it's that big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd rather sacrifice a little bit of clarity for a lot more time imaging.
Makes sense. Absolutely.
But if we look at minimize out of this one and get to our drive here, which is C11 lights, and we're looking for...
He's got dozens of folders in here.
Yeah.
I bet you every one of them has at least 10 hours.
So my M82 folder, which goes from 22 to 2024 has 1,638 images in it.
And how long are each of those?
They vary.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, like hydrogen alpha is going to be much longer.
Yep.
But like all of my luminance ones here, are 5 minutes each.
Nice.
My HA here is 5 minutes each. So if we look at just from, I think all of these are 300. So this is just HA and luminance.
Pay attention, kids. This is what you want to aim for.
Let's cap it. And I know, obviously, I produced the image in 2023. So just 2024's is going to be 715 additional subs.
Wow.
Which if we do the math, we can divide that by 12, gets us an additional 59 hours.
Wow.
On top of the, 60 plus that I had before.
So, yeah, you're talking long-term projects, no doubt about it.
100%. So this honestly might be to the point where I could try and restack luminance with hopefully much better flats and try and specifically just use that for IFN. And the obviously there's a bunch of HA in there too. And I can use that to reinforce my HA with some more confidence.
So let me ask this. Mm-hmm. This is something I think everybody says what I'm going to do with my images, but you have to be doing something with your image. Are you just taking them and keeping them to yourselves for the most part? Like, do you do prints?
I have not made a dime. I have never sold a print. I have made a couple of copies for friends for free.
Yep.
So at my own cost.
Yeah. You're doing this for the love of astrophotography.
Absolutely. Anytime someone says, hey, why don't you sell it? I say, cool. You go sell it for me.
Yeah.
You deal with all of that nonsense, and I will happily split profits with you.
Honestly, it's the same reason. I've had so many people come up to me over the years. Oh man, I'll pay you $1,000 to shoot my wedding, and they just have no idea.
Yep.
Like how that would just suck the joy out of photography for me.
No, I have zero desire to do that. The only line that I drew is during the height of COVID, I did wedding live streams.
Yep.
So I have several friends that do that type of photography professionally. And they said, hey, we're getting all these clients that are asking, their grandparents and their extended family can't travel. It's not safe, but they really want to watch. And they're asking us for a live stream. And like, we are full time doing what we're doing. We don't have. It's a whole other body full time.
That's a respectable endeavor, though. And I think that's doing a service during the pandemic because family members want to be there.
100%. So they reached out to me and said, hey, would you be willing to do this? I said, cool. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to buy some gear for this kind of stuff. So, I brought like an HDMI switcher and some zoom lenses and that kind of stuff. I made no money off of it.
Yeah.
We charged for it, but I just turned it into gear.
Yeah.
But I knew that wasn't going to be kind of a long-term thing. I knew that was going to be a short-term thing, and I was fine doing that short-term. I didn't want to do it long-term. But again, even there, live stream is I watched it and it's gone.
Yeah.
There is no, I'm holding on to this and staring at a print on my wall for forever.
Yeah. No.
And I don't have a problem with someone having a copy of a print of mine. And at some point in the future, I may sell them. I don't have the energy or hustle to try and market myself. I would much rather take pictures for the joy of it. However long it takes me is how long it takes me.
Yeah.
I've done some stuff where like people are selling data and I've worked with some people who are doing that, and the pressure is like I constantly churn out stuff, and it's like, all right, our goal is exactly 40 hours on a target, whether that's how much it needs or not. And it's not as fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you start making it a job in any way, you really do suck a lot of the joy out of it.
Yeah. And
for me, what I personally want to do, and I'm not even close to there yet because I've got to get my observatory first before I can start doing, really long projects like this. But I just like to make a book for myself one day. And I don't mean like sell a book. That's not what I mean. I want a coffee table book of my photos that I can flip through, you know? And I think that would be awesome. But
absolutely. I think the hard thing for me is that I do still continue to improve.
Yep.
And so I look back at my older images that I was so happy with, and now I go, no, that's not good enough.
Oh, man.
So my book wouldn't have very many images in it.
I understand. We're our own worst critics, aren't we? But you could take one of those photos that you're probably not very proud of nowadays and show it to somebody who doesn't know anything about astrophotography. And oh, my God, are you kidding me?
So that's M81, M82. That's from 2022.
Wow.
So IFN, awesome. Super happy with that.
This is like some of, I'm not exaggerating. This is some of the best work I've ever seen.
Oh,
I'm not exaggerating,
that's
Justin.
kind.
That's not being hyperbolic. That's incredible.
Yeah. So this was all shot from the guest pad. Didn't have my own spot. Just came out here and committed to it.
Wow.
But like, I think this is, too purple. I think I could have done a better job with that. This is okay. This is fine.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, look, you've probably looked at these subs for dozens of hours all told, but just seeing it for the first time.
Well, this is version 3, revision 4.
Yeah.
So, this is like the 12th or 14th pass at this.
Okay.
And you get to a point where it's just like, you just like, all right, this is annoying.
My God, I didn't know IFN like that existed, man. My goodness. That is gorgeous.
And then I'll do another pass of this. I've actually technically done, I think, 3 more passes of this, but part of them were with the scopes that was damaged. So it's all tilted and wonky. I've got some more data to work on for it, but I will continue to crank at this because I do want to.
This seems like your passion project.
It definitely is. I really do like this region.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really enjoy is high dynamic range.
Yes. Okay, so HDR is something we've talked about. Yes. Oh, yes. We've talked about it a lot on the show, and I actually spent a whole episode talking about HDR, and I did an HDR composite for Orion where I did 1, 3, 5, 30, 60, etc. subs. Now, where do you feel the state of the art with HDR imaging is for the average astronomer?
I think that it's challenging. It's no different than if you look at like the fad of daytime HDR images. It's very easy to ruin them.
Yes.
To get high localized contrast and then absolutely bake your image.
Yeah. Say that again.
And so the thing that I've kind of leaned towards now is being a lot more gentle, because if something is bright, it should still be bright.
Yeah.
And that may involve not seeing as much detail.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I definitely struggle with that. There are certain images, like even the M81, M82, like I think the galaxy should have been brighter because compared to IFN, they're stupidly bright.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. But at the same time, you want to see all the data, so to speak.
100%. I think, where is, did I do it this way? I think I did. So this is the Christmas tree.
It's beautiful. One of my favorite targets in the winter.
Well, what's real fun is this spot over here in the corner.
Yep, I've seen it.
That's Hubble's Variable Nebula.
Yes.
It's stupid bright. It's stupid bright. So when I was stacking this, I thought this was an aberration because of some sort of reflection or something. It was just so much brighter.
That is extremely, and they call it the Variable Nebula because it is actually variable.
It absolutely is. I've actually contributed some data for another group project. They were measuring signal brightness over time. And so I spent, a handful of nights imaging it. And then, they compiled that with other nights. I had to stretch that. This is well before GHS. I had to stretch it separately.
Oh, wow.
Because of how much brighter it is than the rest of the nebula.
It was just blown out.
It was completely blown out.
I haven't even seen that faintness up above the tree right there.
Yeah.
Up top. That's, man.
So this is again, this was a pretty old image. A lot of the kind of modern technology stuff I didn't know about.
How many years did you say? You said you got started in 2020.
I did get started in 2020. Okay,
so like the kind of revolution, if you will, has happened in the last 3 years or so. So you got to see all the.
I have. It's interesting. When I started in 2020, I knew nothing about community.
Yes,
from an astro perspective, I was just doing my own thing.
Yep.
And I just brute forced my way through a lot of it, and I have a strong background in photography. I've been doing amateur photography for well over 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't consider myself amazing or anything, but from the technology perspective, like I understand how it works.
Yes.
I've been doing technology. I work in IT. Like I understand computers and technology and all that kind of stuff. So for me, the marriage between those, I'm very familiar with Photoshop. So all of those kind of combined together to ramp up from kind of beginner to intermediate very quickly. To the point where I was kind of helping other people that were struggling with stuff that just wasn't familiar with them. They didn't have that background.
Yeah.
To get to the advanced level of processing has been a slower journey, and I'm kind of happy that it's slower because it gives me
something to really sink your teeth into.
Yeah, something to sink to, and also just kind of I'm not going to run out of steam soon. Like I've got a lot of time to go, which I am excited about.
I bet so. I mean, that is without a doubt some of the best work I've ever seen. So well done, man. Keep up the good work on it.
I appreciate that. This is a portion of the Great Lacerda Nebula. That's about 126 hours or 116. I don't remember.
The Great Lacerda Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving me nebulas I've never heard of.
Yep. I think this is part of the Gecko right here.
Okay. What constellation is this in?
Lacerta.
Lacerta. Okay.
This top portion here is all part of it. There's actually a lot of really interesting stuff below it, which I didn't get.
Is that a really big spiral galaxy down below there? Like,
there's so many.
Wow.
There's
Look at the
so
detail.
many. Dude.
What camera was this?
This is another IMX 571 sensor.
Man, that's a hell of a sensor.
Yeah.
My goodness. But I guess how many hours did you say this one is?
So let's check. So this is SH2 126. One of the things I actually started doing was I literally started documenting my integration times.
That makes sense.
So this is 115 hours.
Wow.
66 hours of HA. 24 hours or 25 hours of luminance, and then 7 to 8 hours per red, green, blue.
Wow. That's impressive.
So yeah, it's fun. I'm trying to find. Let's see if I can find.
Oh wow.
That's M17.
My God.
This is not organized. Sorted.
I understand. I got a Google Drive folder.
Yes.
Is this the one you were telling about earlier with the witches?
Let me see if I can find. Yeah. So if we look like all the way up here on the left side, all of this is just black for most people.
Yeah, it is. I speak from experience. Ask me how I know. That is definitely mostly a black area in my images, but my goodness, you brought out.
Even like this outer shock, I don't see a lot of stuff with that.
I haven't seen that in mine. I can tell you right away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's night and day. I mean, the detail on this. Can you rotate it so the room's facing? Yeah, zoom in now. Sorry, I'm gasping. God almighty. Guys, this is oh man. This is some special stuff.
Yeah. So, and this was it's always a challenge because you kind of have to pick and choose. At some point, something has to be black.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no contrast whatsoever. So, I mean, I could have pushed it even more. But there's so much stuff. That's what I love is about sinking into some of these targets with longer and longer integration times. It's just like, hey, it's all out there. You just got to do it.
You got to have the time and patience to image it.
Mm-hmm.
You're inspiring me to want to do a long target now. I mean, even from my house with, 407 skies, now that I've got a pier, technically speaking, I should be able to, do a 40-hour project.
Yeah, for sure. It'll take some time.
Yep. Beautiful horse head.
Yeah, that was
nice.
C11 again.
Oh, look at all the faint nebulosity in the center that rarely gets detail. Oh yeah, that's gorgeous.
Yeah,
that is gorgeous. So what's the longest project that you've done then?
So the longest one that I've done personally, not as a group project, but the longest one that I've quote unquote finished is the portion of the question mark nebula, which is 172 and a half hours so far.
Wow.
Yeah.
172 and a half hours. And you're not done with it yet.
So we talked about it a little earlier off mic, but I want to evaluate it. So about 120 hours is narrowband and about 45 hours or so is broadband.
Okay.
So I've got, and it's not quite even on the channels, but it's all of them are above 10 hours for broadband and 40 hours plus for narrowband. And so what I'd like to do is see if there's interesting stuff in broadband that isn't in narrowband.
Okay.
So, for example, for the Great Lacerda Nebula, I actually saw some interesting stuff that was there in broadband that wasn't visible in narrowband. It's like, oh, it's actually worth spending some extra time on broadband.
Makes sense.
So what I'd like to do is the same for this target is there anything really interesting? And if so, I'll soak a bunch of time into luminance. I have plenty of color data. Now, if I can get luminosity, I can really draw out that detail.
That makes sense.
If there's not a ton of interesting stuff that I can see, then I'm probably good as is, and I'll do a couple of variations of it, traditional narrowband, broadband with full continuum extraction, and just kind of play with that and see what it looks like. But with 172 hours of data, it's something that I can massage multiple different ways and get some unique things out of.
I mean, 44 hours of O3 and the sulfur is 45. Like that's impressive.
Well, I did the Owl Nebula recently, and that's It's kind of a challenging target for a wide field scope.
The
but
Owl Nebula, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a really
yep.
small target, but I got, like the O3 outer shock ring on it, which is nice to see.
Yep.
And so I'm just, CTB1 was the supernova remnant. It's, 36 hours of HA, 37 hours of O3.
That's an incredible photo.
Thank you. That was a fun one to do.
I bet.
So
do you know what your next project's going to be, or have you decided?
I've got a handful of different projects that are rolling.
Okay.
Part of the problem is that I will do targets, and again, because, 40 hours is kind of my minimum, it's rolling, multiple targets rolling across multiple months. Yeah. So like I've got pretty sure like the Medusa Nebula and the Crescent Nebula and like a bunch of different ones. Wide field's been challenging during galaxy season. There's less to see. So I end up picking some kind of obscure stuff.
Oh yeah. Did you do Spaghetti Nebula during the winter time?
No, because that's like a 6-panel mosaic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a big one.
I want to do it. But what I'll probably do is that would be something with like my Roken on 135.
Yeah, that's perfect target for the 135 if you got the right sensor.
I'll do that. I'll do, Rofuki. The 135, I'm still going to kind of do the same thing. I want to do really long integrations. And what that'll probably end up being is actually really big panels of how stuff is tied together.
Yep.
Because it's really odd because you look at stuff in isolation. It's like, oh, there's this target. There's this target. It's like, yeah, but there's like all these strands tying them together or stuff in between them that no one really shoots. And so if you shoot that whole region, man, there's some cool stuff.
Look, we interviewed Nico for Nebula Photos a few weeks back. And he's actually working on a project right now where he is shooting all of Cepheus. So he wants to do like the whole thing, and he actually's got a tattoo of Cepheus on his arm, which I loved, inspired me. I got a little camera on my finger.
Nice. Yeah. I have all of the planets.
Oh, I love that. That's
including
beautiful.
Pluto.
I am. Yes. I love it. I'm still trying to decide what my next tattoo is going to, it's definitely going to be space related. Yeah. I don't know if I want to go with a refractor, a constellation, something like that. Actually, funny enough, I was doing a photo shoot last weekend for another podcast, friends of the show, the Backyard Naturalists. And they do a live recording at the local farmers market in Matthews. And I was there talking to my friend Debbie. She's one of the hosts of the show. And she had these beautiful hand carved walking sticks. And I said something about it because my late father actually used to carve, and walking sticks are one of his favorite things. And I was like, wow, this is really good work. And I was looking at him, appreciating the work. And she said, her brother does them. And I said, you should ask him if he'd ever be interested in doing one with constellations. And sure enough, earlier today, she messaged me and she said, he's in. What do you want? Aww. So being that I know her through birding predominantly, I said, let's do all the birds. Let's do Cygnus. Let's do Aquila. Let's do Corvus. So
that's awesome.
I can't wait to see how that turns out.
No, that's super dope.
For sure. Well, hey, man, look, if you want to send a few photos, I'd love to post them in the show notes. Feel free to share whatever you want. I understand it's very personal. But if you want to share one, let me know. I'll put them in the notes. And do you have anything you want to plug or anything, like any socials or anything?
Not yet.
Okay.
I keep kicking around the idea of starting a YouTube channel, and it's gone through, I think, 3 or 4 iterations of episode 1.
It's a lot of work, man.
It's not even that. It's just like, what's the vision? Why am I doing this? And how do I sustain this?
I've thought about it too. So I've done a couple of YouTube episodes with live video. Now, this is always predominantly going to be an audio podcast, but I do occasionally like to do some video stuff. But like, I'm a big fan of, like, as far as YouTubers go, I'm a big fan of like Casey Neistat and like really thinking about shots and putting them together. And if I ever did like an actual YouTube show, I would want it to be cinematic, you know, along with, not just shots of my telescope slowing around over a time lapse, but like something a little more cinematic than that would be really important to me personally.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's part of the problem though, is like, so version 1 was very much that way. And, my B-roll was with like a full frame, Canon 60 with a 100 to 400 millimeter lens at 400 millimeters f8, but shot halfway across the field. So only the single plane of axis that I'm in is in focus, and it's like super
blown out bokeh.
completely blown out behind it. Gorgeous shot. But I was like, how am I going to like continue to do this production level? Like, I have a cinema camera.
You do? Nice.
I have a Blackmagic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I have, like, ironically, even if I can't get the Rokinon to work the way I want, like, I can just use it as a cinema lens.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I have multiple things of that. You know, I've got all this stuff, but it's just like, I don't have the time. As much as I really want high production value, I don't have the bandwidth for that.
I completely understand that.
So like version 2 was much less, and then version 3 was basically a vlog.
Yeah.
So just like, hey, come along with someone who just went too deep.
Yep.
So I actually filmed that on my way over today.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I had.
I love that you're kicking it around, man.
Yeah,
if you end up doing it, like.
Yeah, so I said don't plug it yet because I'm not there.
I won't.
But yeah, I got some Rode podcast mics.
Nice.
Had that. My camera on the dashboard pointed at me.
Yep.
Obviously, I had to do research. Fun fact: you can legally pin stuff to your windows in North Carolina, but not South Carolina.
You're gonna take it down. So when you're driving down, so just so you guys know, we're down in South Carolina for the observatory, but the majority of the members of the club live in North Carolina, and you can definitely tell when you're in South Carolina because the road quality tends to change. But we're just like 20 minutes or so.
Yeah,
from
it's one of the last turns to kind of get out of the state. But yeah, I mean, you can put stuff on your dash. That's totally fine. But window-mounted things, not okay in South Carolina.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
It's very good
South
to know.
Carolina's some really interesting laws.
Yeah, you can't buy pants until noon on Sunday. When I was a kid,
highly doubt that's enforced.
I don't know if it is anymore, but I can tell you when I was a kid, it was because my mom was dating a guy down in Aiken, and we were staying down at his house for the weekend, and I needed a new pair of pants, and she took me to Walmart on Sunday morning. They wouldn't sell me clothes.
That's wild.
Believe it or not. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's probably not like that anymore. That
probably
was
not.
God, probably.
But there are still some interesting ones that say, really?
Yeah.
I don't understand the logic of that one, but okay.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate having you. Absolutely. And maybe we'll get to talk again sometime soon.
That'd be a blast.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. So what'd you think? Like I say, Justin did not disappoint. And I want to point out he's actually the president of the Charlotte Amateur Astronomers Club. He definitely seems to be a guy who prefers his anonymity. I was really taken aback when he mentioned that he had never sold a print. He had doesn't appear to have ever posted anything to socials. I mean, that is just so atypical from what we see nowadays. Everybody has to say me, share. Justin is the definition of someone who is doing astrophotography for the love of astrophotography. And that was just really, really, really refreshing to see. And honestly, it's something we should all aspire to. So this is an extra long episode, as you can probably tell. So it's already going to be coming out close to 10 p.m. Eastern. So I want to get this wrapped up and uploaded for all of you great people who have been waiting on the new episode to drop. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap this up this week. We'll get back to a more normal schedule next week, hopefully, although I do have a couple more interviews in the pipeline, so stay tuned for those. But I am your host, Rue. You have been listening to the Astrocast. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, and as always, clear skies.